PowerPoints ready. We're going to look at two today. I shared those with you a few minutes ago. So they are on Google Classroom. So I'm just going to get these open so we're ready to take a look. We probably won't take the full 45 minutes today. Just going to do this. And open up my other one, and then we will get ourselves started for today. So I hope everyone's doing well. This is our last official lecture day, so we won't be having any more lectures after today. Just get that open, and we're just give me one sec. Okay, and just waiting for my PowerPoint to open here. And eventually it will do so, and then we can get started. That one's taking forever because it's so darn big. Okay, so let's, while we're waiting for that to do what I want it to do, let's just talk a little bit. First of all, there we go. Like I said, this is our last official lecture. So we are done after today, and I will give you a worksheet. I haven't finished making it yet, so it'll be ready for you by noon today. So the worksheet will be due on Monday, and then you guys will have your very last unit test over Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Now, Tuesday is the last day for me to accept assignments, except for that exam. So that exam will go Tuesday and Wednesday. My marks are due Friday morning, so anyone who has outstanding assignments really needs to make sure that those are in to me by Tuesday, by midnight, okay? So that is it for that. Monday and Tuesday, I will still be holding office hours on Zoom. But after that, and you can always contact me through email or meet me on Zoom at any other time. I'm happy to do that as well. Okay, so I just need to open one more thing here, and then we will just get started. I just have to, it's a lot easier if we have PowerPoints open before. There we go. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Oh, whoops, hold on. Hold on. There we are. Stop. Okay, perfect. All right, we are set to go. So I hope everyone's doing well. We are getting really close. I know some of your classes have assignments that are due later, some are due earlier. A lot of it just depends on when marks are due. For CTS courses, marks are all due Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning, so that's why everything is due on the 16th. Those of you who had stuff that's still outstanding, received an email last night. Some of you, it's one thing. Some people have like multiple things still left to do. So if you've been keeping up with everything all along the way, then you shouldn't have too much to stress about. Okay, without further ado, we're going to talk about some nutritional information. So I'm just going to share this with you. So like I said, this is already posted on Classroom. Okay, and this is what I want. So this PowerPoint is put together by Health Canada. And it's just about nutrition labeling, because we need to understand a little bit about labeling. If we're going to make good choices, we have to understand what the labels actually mean. There we go. So understanding nutrition labeling. So basically, we're just taking a look at that and seeing what all that stuff means here. There we go. Okay. So we'll run through this one quickly, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some misinformation. So nutrition information provided on food labels. So we have facts. So the first thing is looking at this facts, and they have a list of things that they have to outline. So the big items, right, are protein, our carbs, and our protein, carbs, and fats have to be included on there. And then they break down the types of fats, they break down the types of carbs, etc. We also want to take a look at our ingredient list. Now, that's another thing that we can see on here. And then nutrition claims tell you if it's good for a certain nutrient. And then health claims if it's good for reducing, let's say, risk of heart disease. So if it's something that has reduces our body's amount of bad cholesterol, then they could make a claim like that. Okay. All right, so nutrition facts. So they have to be easy to find. They have to be easy to read, and they're on most prepackaged foods. So almost every prepackaged food has nutrition facts on it. And so we're seeing things like what is the serving size, how many calories it is, again, fat, and we can see fat. We've got our saturated fats and our trans fats, because these are the ones we want to really watch, right? Cholesterol, we don't want to have things that are super high in cholesterol. Cholesterol is in anything that's got a meat, or animal product. How much sodium is in it, we want to make sure that we're maintaining. Sodium, I think the last number that I read for sodium was about 2,500 milligrams of sodium is the maximum we should have. It's about a teaspoon of sodium. But again, it's not like we're eating the salt. You're looking at your prepackaged food because usually they're higher in sodium. Here's our carbs, but then they break down our carbs, like how many of those carbs are sugars, how many of those carbs are fibers. So remember, sugars, that's our simple sugars, the stuff that's super easy to digest. The fibers is the stuff that we don't digest, we don't get energy from. So that's the stuff that makes us feel full. And then this would be the rest of our complex carbs, so like our starches, and then our protein here, okay? And then it breaks it down to what our daily value is here, meeting our requirements for, they have to have these ones, so calcium, iron, vitamin C, and vitamin A, okay? All right, so we have all of those things there. So food products that have nutrition facts, almost everything that's prepackaged. So we're not gonna see it on an apple at the grocery store, right? We're not gonna see it on a piece of steak or what have you. We're not gonna see it on a donut. And things that don't have a lot of nutrients. So you're usually not gonna see it on a pack of coffee beans. You're not gonna usually see it on your tea or your spices. Some Keurig or little single cup coffees will have some nutrient information available, especially if there's sweeteners or things added to it. And you don't really usually see them on alcoholic beverages. All right, so why do we use it? I use these all the time to figure out what product I should choose, right? Look for food with a little or a lot of a specific nutrient. So if you're looking for something, so for example, when I buy breakfast cereal, I like to buy breakfast cereal that's high in fiber, okay, and low in added sugar, okay? So if you have a special diet, maybe you have people in your house that are allergic to milk. So then you're gonna use your nutrition facts to make sure that there's no milk ingredients, okay? Now we wanna remember that the nutrition facts are based on what they say their serving size is. Now the serving size doesn't necessarily mean that's what's meant for you to eat. It could be more than that or less than that. So you have to compare when you're looking at the labels. One tricky thing that they do, particularly I've noticed this in the cereal aisle, is what a serving size is for one cereal isn't the serving size for another cereal. Some cereals it could be a third of a cup. Some cereals it could be a full cup. So you want to make sure you're taking that into account when you're reading the label, because it's not consistent, okay? Specific amount is serving size. So sometimes they'll have a suggested serving size that they give you, okay? And sometimes so if we look nutrition facts, again, we're looking at serving size. So brand cereal, their serving size for this example is 1 cup, but maybe you eat a cup and a half, right? So you want to make sure that you're reading the label based on how much you would eat for a serving, okay? Daily value, it's used to determine whether there's a lot or a little bit of a nutrient. So based on recommendations for a healthy diet, right? So this has about 1/5 of what you need for the calcium content, right? Doesn't have the iron or vitamin C, but we see that it's got about 4% of the fat that you would want to have for the day, 3% of the sodium, etc. So it's something so you can gauge where you're going with your daily amount. okay? So when we're using the percent daily amount, we want to look first of all at what they say their serving size is versus what you're going to eat. So if they say the serving size is 1/3 of a cup, but you eat a cup, then obviously you're going to have to multiply all of these values by 3, okay? If it says daily value of 5% or less, then it doesn't have a lot of it, right? 15% or more is considered a substantial amount, right? So this would be a substantial amount of calcium here, okay? Make a better choice. So the things that we're looking for often is fiber, right? Things we're looking for maybe not having as much of is sodium. So that's why we see sodium, reduced sodium on some containers. We don't want a lot of saturated and trans fats. Saturated fats can lead us to blocked arteries. Trans fats can actually do some damage to our cells. And fat in general, we want to make sure we're staying within that 2 to 3 tablespoons a day of fat, right? If you want to have a cereal with more fiber, so here's a comparison of 2 different types of cereal. So the first thing we're looking at, this is for 1/2 a cup, this is for 3/4 of a cup, right? So this is actually 2/3 of the size of this. So we would have to multiply this a little bit. So this has quite a bit more fiber than this, right? Calories are the same. So I'm eating less, but I get the same amount of calories, but I get more fiber, so I'm actually going to feel more full, okay? We also want to make sure we're looking at that ingredient list. So remember, the ingredient list is for food by weight. So the one that has the most weight, so if we measure the weight of all the ingredients, the one that's the most is what's listed first, the one that's the least is listed last. So when we're looking at added sugar, we want to look for words like sugar. We want to look for words like syrup, okay, because they hide sugar in all sorts of ingredients. High fructose corn syrup is one common ingredient. And anything that ends in ose is a sugar, okay? So here we see sugar is the second ingredient, okay? I think is all I wanted to say for that. Nutrition claims are regulated statements made. So statements that are made, good source of vitamin C, only found in some food products, and you can go on to the website and they should break down when companies can make certain types of statements if they have met certain criteria, okay? So if you want to decrease the amount of certain nutrients, look for free. Now, if it says it's free, it doesn't mean it's free, it means it just has a really small amount of, right? So none or hardly any. Low is a small amount, reduced, so at least 25% less than what would normally be in there, or reduced in calories, or used on foods that are reduced in fat. It can be light. Careful with the light. Reduced in fat might be what it is, but it might not be reduced in calories, and it might not be reduced in sugar, okay? Nutrition claims, okay, significant amount of the nutrient, high or good source of means it has more than that 15% of that substance, okay? Healthy diet, so health claims, disease risk reduced. Run out of power here, okay? One thing you want to make sure of is that the general health claim, if it's done by a third-party organization, then that's not regulated, okay? So you want to make sure that you're reading the labels and not looking at the claims so much, because I know there was a time when having fat-free was really common. That was when I was your guys' age, because high cholesterol was a big deal. And they would put things like fat-free on Jell-O, something that had never ever had fat before, but now it was a selling feature. So you want to kind of go away from the claims and just examine the ingredients and the nutritional labeling yourself, okay? Looking at the food guide, this is the old version of the food guide, but we still want to make sure we're apprised with what ingredients we should be eating. Eating a dark green vegetable and an orange vegetable every day. Focus on stuff that has little or no fat or sugar or salt. More often than juice. Lots of calories and not that fiber punch that we get when we have a whole fruit. Okay. Grain products. We want to have whole grain and then choose grain products that are low in fat, sugar, or salt. Okay. Lower fat milk alternatives. Meat, choosing alternatives to red meat. Oils, again, keeping within our limit of oils. So reading labels and comparison. So you want to be comparing what's on your different labels. And yeah, I think that's it. So we have a little video that we're going to watch on this. So just give me one sec. I'll share that with you. Oh, just a sec. Okay. Let's go back to share for a second here.
People ask me, hey health nerd, what's the best way to start improving my health? Is it through a calorie counting app?
Oops.
Shopping at Whole Foods, maybe joining my local booty boot camp? Well, actually, esteemed reader, one of the best ways to improve your health quickly is by learning how to read nutrition labels. You may think these labels contain some complex science and mathematical equations, but they're really not that scary. Let's walk through how to properly read these things. The first thing you'll notice is at the top of the nutrition facts are the serving size and servings per container. This is simply the amount in the package or container. Pretty self-explanatory. Next, you have the ingredients. Everything inside of these black lines is representative of one serving. This is important to understand because next you'll see the calories and the calories from fat. This is pretty much the only thing most people ever look at, and this is a common mistake. If the package says 200 calories on the bag of chips, but the servings per container say 2.5, that means there's actually 500 calories in the bag. This is a clever little marketing trick that you should be aware of. Pressing on, you will see the total fat on the package along with the number and percentage on the right-hand side. The number represents the total fat in one serving, and the percentage represents the percentage based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So 8 grams is 12% of a 2,000 calorie diet. I should also remind you that fat is not bad for you, and there are plenty of healthy foods that are high in fat. What you really want to watch out for is any trans fat. Trans fat is the kind linked to heart disease and all sorts of medical conditions. Avoid this at all costs. Saturated fat should be much less of a concern. This may surprise some of you, so I will link a few studies below that have conclusively proven that saturated fat is fine to eat and not the cause of many diseases it was wrongly accused for. Think of saturated fat as the middle child of the fat family. He's got a good heart, but he's just a little misunderstood. Now you may be thinking, wait a minute, why does the total number of saturated fat and trans fat not add up to the total fat on the top? Where's the other 7 grams? Well, this is because not all fats will be listed on the nutrition label. Only the nutrients deemed most important ever make it to the nutrition labels. Don't worry though, the other fats not listed are generally healthy and should be much less of a concern. Pressing on, you will see the cholesterol and sodium. Remember, these numbers are based on one serving. If the sodium was 25% of your daily intake and the package had 2.5 servings on it, that means the entire package contains 63% of your daily sodium intake. Quite a bit considering this is one snack. Onward, you'll see the carbohydrate section. Carbohydrates are the breads, grains, fiber, and sugars in the food. The first section you'll see is for dietary fiber. Having a good amount of dietary fiber is a good thing as it helps with digestion and satisfaction from your meals. Now, the next section is what you really need to pay attention to. The total sugars in the food you're eating are important to watch out for as, like trans fat, they have been linked to a whole host of diseases and health problems. Also, you should be aware of not only the sugar in the food, but what kind of carbohydrates you're eating. If the food is very high in carbohydrates but low in dietary fiber, even though the carbs are not labeled as sugar, they will operate very similarly in your bloodstream. These are called simple carbs. This is why you need to watch out for unrefined carbohydrates like white bread and pastas. Next up, you'll see the label for protein. Knowing that foods high in protein lead to better satisfaction from your meals and promote lean muscle tissue, you'll want most of the foods you eat to have a good amount of protein. Finally, we have a few key vitamins at the bottom. It may sound strange, but ignore these. These numbers will be notoriously low, and you should be focusing instead on getting lots of fruits and vegetables in every day to meet your vitamin requirements. Leafy greens contain calcium and iron, and fruits contain vitamin C and vitamin A. The rest of the nutrition label facts contain recommendations about how much in each category to get in. They do not change on the nutrition label and are not that important. Finally, on some labels, you will see the calories per gram for each macronutrient. Fat contains 9 grams per serving, and carbohydrates and proteins contain 4. So for every 10 grams of fat, you will have 90 calories. For every 10 grams of protein or carbohydrates, you will get 40 calories. Safe to say, you should now have a general understanding of how nutrition labels work. Most importantly, you can stop assuming something is healthy for you based on tricky packaging and start knowing the difference. Got a burning health question you need answered? Just put it in the comment section below. And rumor has it, for every new subscriber I get...
Okay, enough of that. All right, so that just gives us a little bit of a sense here for nutrition labels, okay? So we need to understand nutrition labels, and it's a really good way to look at what food choices to make when we compare them. But like you said in the video, when we're looking at those nutrients at the bottom, the vitamin A and the vitamin C, because you're going to be getting these from your fruits and vegetables which don't have the labels, that's really what we want to focus on. So you should be really making sure that you're getting enough fruits and vegetables in your diet, because that's going to give us a lot of that vitamins and minerals that we need. Okay. All right. I have another PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. And again, this is on Google Classroom already. So let's go to new share. And now we're going to go to this one. So the last little bit we're going to talk about is just some nutrition information and misinformation. Okay. And then some of the responsibilities of coaches. So this is very short. First of all, we're just going to look at red flags. So when we're given some information about choosing one product over the other, there's a couple of red flags that we want to pay attention to, right? So we're just going to look at these red flags one by one. So let's take a look at the first one. So one red flag for nutrition information, and we'll see these sometimes on advertisements in magazines, in the newspaper, on television: lose up to 10 pounds in 1 week. So remember, we talked about losing weight, and the maximum we really want to lose in 1 week is 2 pounds. If we're starting to lose more than that, often we're losing water, right? And diets like this are not sustainable. So we want to be really cognizant of that. So quick fixes don't work. Just like if someone says to you that you don't have to exercise and you don't have to worry about what you eat, but this will help, right? We know that diet and exercise are critical in order to maintain our body weight, okay? Dire warnings of danger from a single product or regimen. So when they say, if you eat this one thing, that's bad, right? We want to, I mean, it's food, right? As long as it's all food, because it's all about quantity. So everything's about dosage. So anytime you have something saying that you shouldn't eat oranges because oranges will do blank, you got to just put on your critical thinking cap and say, that doesn't sound right to me, right? Claims that sound too good to be true, right? I used this product and 6 months later I had a 6-pack, right? And you look at it and go, okay, just from eating that. So you want to make sure that you're, again, thinking critically. Non-science-based testimonials, often from celebrities. You have to remember that when a celebrity comes out and says you should use this product, they're getting paid a lot of money to do that. So unless it's based on science, you really don't want to be following that advice. You always want to be thinking critically. Recommendations based on a single study. So when we have a scientific study, we want to make sure that that science study is backed up by other studies, right? Results have to be reproducible in order to be something that can be accepted. So when one study comes out, so often we'll see that in the news, right? They'll have their little health portion and they'll say a study said this. If there's no other research to support that or back that up, you want to be thinking critically again about following that advice. All right, spinning information from another product to match the product's claims. That should say match, sorry. Again, we want to be cognizant of any kind of spinning of information. Dramatic statements that are just proven by reputable scientific organizations. Well, even though the nutrition says this, we found this, so therefore you should follow our advice, right? Be careful of that. Research is underway. So sometimes we'll see that research is underway that says this. What does that mean? There is no research. Okay. Simplistic conclusions drawn from a complex study. This happens all the time. So for Biology 30, when I help out with item writing, how we item write is we look at different kind of science magazines. And then we'll look at the article and what it says. But then we have to go to the original research. And oftentimes, when we go to the original research, so the science article is written by science writers, not scientists. We go to the original research. Oftentimes, the science writer has twisted the information to make it say something that it doesn't actually say. So you have to be really careful of that. And then when you start getting this list, like this is bad, this is good, right? There's no bad or good. There's quantity, right? So we're just going to watch just a quick video on this. So we'll go back to that. And
Science Alliance has provided a list of red flags to help you recognize nutrition junk science. FENSA is made up of members of 7 scientific societies, including the American College of Nutrition, the American Dietetic Association, and others. Some people make distinctions between pseudoscience and junk science. We can think of it all simply as bad science. These red flags will help you to easily spot misinformation or disinformation concerning nutrition. The first red flag is where the info promises a quick and easy fix. Examples are promises that you'll lose weight via some method or pill that tricks your metabolism so that you lose weight without dieting or exercise. Next, we have fearful warnings of great danger from a single food, product, or diet. There are many articles on the web listing the most dangerous foods. Now, something you may not realize is that many articles are written from the standpoint of a provocative headline. A great headline can make your nutrition article go viral, even if the article itself is junk. Examples: coffee causes psychotic episodes and depression, and canned foods are poisonous. Flag number 3 is when the info tells you what you want to hear. In other words, it's just too good to be true. Eat all the fatty red meat you want and avoid fruit. You'll live longer. Or is conclusions drawn from a complex study. Most of the time, the data from a highly involved and complex study does not lend itself to one easy and simple conclusion. In fact, more often than not, the data just brings up the need for further investigation into certain areas brought to light by the limitation of the data. Next is making recommendations based on a single study. One study is almost never enough to draw conclusions from. Avoid buying into dramatic claims that are refuted by major scientific organizations. Saying something different than everyone else does not make you right. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Red flag number 7. List of good and bad foods. These articles are a dime a dozen on the internet. Nutritionists often say there are no bad foods, only bad diets. You should also recognize the difference between a single food, a diet, or a product, as many of the bad food lists compare single foods to dishes or packaged food products. It makes no sense to compare broccoli to pizza. Sometimes nutrition articles contain links to products, such as a food or book. This is okay. But when the article makes claims designed to sell you a certain product, you should be cautious. This product is delicious is probably more credible than this is a superfood. Many of the self-proclaimed health saviors on the net like to tell us that a certain product is dangerous and then sell us their version of the product. For example, they may tell you that most whey protein is bad and impure, and then tell you that only their product is good and pure and potent. Number 9 is study results released to the media before peer review and sometimes even before publication. This absolutely undermines the scientific process. Our last red flag is recommendations from studies that ignore differences among individuals or groups. This would be sweeping conclusions being made based on one sample from one particular group of individuals. What applies to someone else may not apply to you or may not apply to you in the same way. Morgan Spurlock's great documentary Super Size Me is an interesting film, but conclusions drawn from it are not scientific.
Stop there. I like that he brought up Super Size Me at the end there. It's interesting, and most of you guys have watched it at some point in a health class. But I actually worked with a guy, I taught night school with him. He worked full-time at Norquest College, and they were interviewing him on the news one day, and he had done his own Super Size Me. So he decided he would eat at McDonald's every day as well. So he did that, but he exercised. And he kept up his exercise regime, and actually the effects on his body were insignificant. So now, I mean, it's still not a great study because it's only looking at one person. So now we have Super Size Me, one person, my former colleague, one person. So it really shows us that we need to look at the long-term effects and have parameters in our study that we're actually investigating. Okay, so be cognizant of studies like that. All right, so we're going to go back to the PowerPoint and just talk a little bit about coaching information. Okay. All right. Oh, supplements first. So supplements, so just things to be aware of when we're looking for supplements. So we have something called nutritional ergogenic aids. So we'll see that word ergogenic aids when ergogenic aid is anything that enhances athletic performance. So really, we could even think about anabolic steroids as being an ergogenic aid, right? So when we use just that, if we get rid of this nutritional, just use ergogenic aids, that could be referring to anything, whether it's an exercise technique or what have you. Nutritional, then we're looking at food sources, right? Supplements that enhance athletic performance. The problem with these is that, again, there might be unsubstantiated claims. Like I've heard of different kinds of amino acids being promoted, bee pollen being promoted, just all sorts of things. And you really want to make sure that you're doing your research on these types of things. So some nutritional aids work to increase performance, but you really want to do a good amount of research, like going to university websites and investigating it that way, as opposed to just a muscle building website, right? Which might be promoting their own products. Amino acid supplementation. So there's a whole array of different kinds of amino acids, right? We have 20 different amino acids. Some our body makes, some are essential, the ones our body doesn't make. So the reason people take these is they think that it's going to help with their recovery and muscle growth. As far as what I can tell in some of the research that I was doing on this, there's no scientific basis to support the benefit of amino acid supplements, right? If you're eating the correct amount of protein, that protein will include the amino acids that we need. So a specific amino acid isn't going to be a benefit to you. Protein supplementation. First of all, we want to know that more isn't necessarily better. So just because you eat more protein or you have more protein supplement doesn't mean that all of a sudden muscles are going to pop out of your body, right? Excess protein isn't stored, right? If we eat too many carbs, we store our carbs and eventually they get stored as fat. Protein, we just pee it right out. From what I've read, it sounds like taking too much protein can cause some stomach problems, right? The recommendation for athletes is about 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. okay? Now that might vary depending on what type of competition or anything that you're doing, but you don't really want to exceed that. Now, whether you're exceeding it with a protein supplement or eating meat or beans or what have you, but staying within that limit, okay? So overdoing the protein isn't going to be any benefit to you, and it might make you feel uncomfortable, okay? Vitamins and minerals. So again, there's some different kinds of things that are telling you that you should take more of this mineral or more of this vitamin. There's nothing that really supports the fact that if we take more vitamins or minerals that we will get enhanced athletic performance, okay? Most athletes are going to get what they need in their diet. The only time we really need to worry about supplementing our minerals is if we have a restrictive diet. So for example, if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, you might need to supplement because you're not able to eat enough of that particular food source. Or maybe you have celiac disease, so then you need to find alternatives to eating wheat-based products, right? So usually those are the types of situations with that, okay? Carbohydrate supplements, these are ones we've been talking about all along. They can improve energy availability, so carbohydrate supplements could include your sports drinks. So top off glycogen stores before the activity, maintain energy levels during the activity, or replenish lost energy after, and can also promote recovery, okay? So out of all of the supplements, this is the one that's probably the most important to a training athlete. Okay, coaches. So the importance about being a coach when we're talking about nutrition, you have to take that role really seriously, because what you say about nutrition is usually the thing that the athletes and the parents hang on to the most, right? That's where you go to. Should my child eat this? Should my athlete eat this? And the coach is the one that's giving that information. So a coach can influence the food choices at home, school, and recreation centers, and can create more demand, right? The coach says you should eat more vegetables, then you might be going to mom and dad, I need more vegetables, and then they start purchasing more vegetables, right? They can also help you create a demand to have more nutritious food available at school, in the cafeteria, or even recreation centers. So like I said to you, we've got Dairy Queen on one end of the rec center here in town, and then we have, I don't know what it's called anymore, but the little kiosk at the other end, which really doesn't have a lot of healthy food choices, right? So maybe promoting having places that have more healthy food choices, right? So coach's role with nutrition, what is the coach going to do? Can offer information or information sessions on the role of nutrition in sports performance, provide assistance in planning healthy nutrition. So how to eat healthy at home, how to eat healthy when we're traveling, how to eat healthy when we're training or competing, right? However, there are situations where the coach's expertise is limited, right? So in some situations, the situation of the athlete may require more nutritional expertise than can be provided by the coach. So in those situations, then that coach would refer that athlete to an expert. And in most cases, that would be a registered dietitian, often, or another medical professional, but most likely a registered dietitian. So these types of situations would be for weight management, for example. So let's say you have an athlete that is overweight but wants to lose weight. It might be difficult to try to guide them to lose weight and still maintain the appropriate calories to maintain their energy level, in which case seeking out a registered dietitian would be important. If your athlete has a special diet, like if they have diabetes, so they have to maintain a very rigid amount of sugar that they eat, or celiac disease where they can't eat any products with gluten, right? So if they have a special diet, then a registered dietitian would be a person to guide them and still make sure they're finding the correct amount of energy sources and nutrients they need from their diet. Vegetarianism, right? So if you're pulling meat out of your diet, what can we do to replace that meat? And is there any supplements we need now to meet any shortfalls? Or to help with eating disorders, right? Eating disorders are a lot more than just the nutrients. So seeing a professional, in this case, an eating disorder might require not just a dietitian, but maybe a therapist as well to help the individual overcome the eating disorder, or at least learn how to cope with it rather, okay? And just a little rundown what a registered dietitian is. So these people have university degrees studying food and nutrition. They also they belong to a professional organization. So that says that they have to continually upgrade their nutritional information so it's always updated. So what they do for their patients, they take the science of nutrition and then they help guide their patients through that. Okay. And most doctors' offices have registered dietitians that work there, maybe 1 or 2 mornings a week or what have you, where you can access them that way, or you can call Alberta Health Services and they will find you one in your area. That's it, guys. Any questions? Okay. Medical Services 10 is now officially over. So I will send out your very last assignment sometime around noon today. And we don't have any more lectures. We're done with lectures. I will open Zoom up on Monday and Tuesday from 10 to 12 in case you have questions for me. But beyond that, we are finished. And of course, you can email me anytime with any questions. All right. It has been great. I wish I could have worked with you guys in the classroom. This has definitely not been an optimal way for me to teach, and I don't think an optimal way for people to learn. But it is what it is. So the final exam will be over Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, Alina. Is there any other questions? All right. So have a wonderful weekend, and you just have to push through a couple more days, guys. All right. Take care. Thanks, Carly.